Philadelphia is one of America's few world-class cities. It's without question the most historically significant city in the nation, and I find it to be one of the world's most fascinating cities, period. I also recently lived in Philly for a few years, so it's a city that I've been looking forward to making an overview on for a long time. In this series, I briefly cover a city's history, population, skyline, as well as a few things that make the city unique. Now let's meet the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. I like to start these videos by exploring how a city wound up being where it is today. Philadelphia is located at the confluence of the Delaware and Schuylkill rivers in what is today southeast Pennsylvania. Philadelphia itself was founded in 1682 by William Penn, a Quaker seeking religious freedom, which quickly became a center for political, cultural, and economic activity in colonial America. During the 18th century, Philadelphia played a pivotal role in the birth of the nation. It was the meeting place for the First and Second Continental Congresses, where the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution were debated and assigned. The city served as the nation's capital before Washington, D.C. took on that role. Philadelphia's location along the Delaware River established it as a major port city, fueling its growth during the Industrial Revolution. Industries like shipbuilding, textiles, and manufacturing flourished, making it one of the most important urban centers in the 19th century. Today, Philadelphia boasts a city proper population just over 1.5 million, making it the 6th largest city in the country and the 2nd largest on the East Coast. I tend to prefer comparing cities by their metro population, and Philadelphia has a metro population just over 6.2 million, making it the 8th largest metro in the country, falling between Washington, D.C. and Miami. Some of the most recognizable companies headquartered in the Philly metro include Comcast, Aramark, Vanguard, Wawa, Five Below, Anthropologie, and its parent company of Urban Outfitters. There are over 30 colleges and universities in the Philadelphia metro, some of the most notable being Villanova, St. Joseph's, Temple, Drexel, and Philly's Ivy League school, the University of Pennsylvania. Call me shallow, but when it comes to cities, I think appearances matter. Philadelphia is one of the most stunning cities on the continent. Its skyline is my 3rd favorite skyline in the country, only trailing New York and Chicago. If you were to take the average height of its tallest 5 buildings, it is also the 3rd tallest skyline in the country, falling far short of Chicago, but being taller than Los Angeles. Something that makes that fact even more impressive is that Philadelphia was relatively late to the skyscraper game for a city of its size. The reason for this is that there was a gentleman's agreement that no building should be built taller than the top of William Penn's hat atop the Philadelphia City Hall. For instance, this iconic image from Rocky shows Philly in 1976, when it wasn't uncommon for cities to have buildings taller than 600 feet. And yet, the Philly skyline is relatively flat due to the agreement to keep buildings shorter than William Penn. The gentleman's agreement was broken in 1984 when One Liberty Place was built, which is Philly's 3rd tallest building today at 945 feet or 288 meters. Philly's tallest building today is the Comcast Technology Center. It stands a towering 1,121 feet or 342 meters tall, making it the tallest building in the country outside of New York and Chicago. The lobby of the building is impressive in and of itself and has what's called the Universal Sphere, which is a 360-degree dome theater which plays a free 15-minute video made by Steven Spielberg. Although it's not the city's tallest building anymore, my favorite building in Philly is the Philadelphia City Hall. Few buildings in the world have as many records and superlatives as this incredible building. It was designed to be the world's tallest building, but due to construction taking 30 years, it was surpassed by the Washington Monument and the Eiffel Tower before it would get the chance to make that claim. Upon completion, though, it could claim the title of world's tallest habitable building, making it the first non-religious building in the world to have this distinction. Although it can no longer claim that title, the height record that it currently holds is the tallest building in the world without any steel reinforcement. And beyond just its height, the Philadelphia City Hall is simply massive. With 14.5 acres of floor space, it is larger than the U.S. Capitol building and is the largest municipal building in the world. The exterior of the City Hall is designed in the beautiful French Second Empire style, and sculptures are carved throughout the outside of the entire building. The most famous sculpture, though, is the giant William Penn statue atop the building. The 53,000-pound statue is the largest statue atop a building in the entire world. Across the street from the City Hall is another impressive building, Wanamaker's Department Store. It was one of the country's first large department stores and today is a Macy's. Within the department store is the Wanamaker pipe organ, which is the largest operating musical instrument in the world. Leading up to Christmas, the organ is used for the famous Christmas light show. Another interesting building adjacent to the City Hall is Philly's Masonic Temple. The cathedral-like building is considered to have the best architecture of any Masonic temple in the country. Within its ornate interior, there are 7 different meeting halls that are inspired by different countries and different time periods. A couple blocks east of the Masonic Temple is the world-famous Reading Terminal Market, which was one of our favorite places to take visitors to when we lived in Philly. The market is one of the oldest and largest public markets in the country, and today is located in a portion of a former train shed. The market has over 80 merchants and is consistently ranked as the top public market in the whole country. Another unique Philly landmark is the Eastern State Penitentiary. This castle-like structure was at one point the most famous and expensive prison in the world. At the time of its completion, it was also the largest public structure in the country. It was the world's first penitentiary and also pioneered the wagon wheel design for a prison. The most famous criminal held there was Al Capone, and today you can see his cell when taking a tour of the historic prison. A few blocks west of the penitentiary is the world's largest landscaped urban park, Fairmount Park. In 1876, Fairmount Park was the site of the Centennial Exposition, which was the first official World's Fair to be held in the United States. The only major structure from the fair that still stands is the beautiful Memorial Hall, which now houses Philly's children's museum, the Please Touch Museum. Some of the other landmarks within Fairmount Park include the Philadelphia Zoo, which is the oldest zoo in the country, the beautiful Victorian-era Boathouse Row, and the Waterworks event space along the Schuylkill River. The most famous Philly landmark within the park, which is also referred to as the gateway to Fairmount Park, is the Philadelphia Museum of Art. The museum is renowned for its impressive art collection of over 220,000 pieces from around the globe, but I think it's most known for its exterior. This is just another incredible Philadelphia building from an architectural standpoint. I can't think of another art museum that sits as majestically and prominently within a city. Its steps are part of what make the building iconic due to the inspiring scene of Rocky running up the steps in the first Rocky movie. The prominence of the museum is benefited by the Benjamin Franklin Parkway cutting diagonally through Center City, connecting the art museum to the City Hall. There are several museums and landmarks along the Benjamin Franklin Parkway, including the Rodin Museum, which houses the largest collection of Auguste Rodin's work outside of Paris. The Barnes Foundation, which has one of the world's most impressive collections of Impressionist art, and the Franklin Institute, which is considered one of the best science museums in the country. My favorite exhibit, which is unique to the Franklin Institute, is the Giant Heart, where you can walk through each of the chambers of the heart as if you were blood being pumped through it. In the center of the museum is a giant statue of America's first international celebrity, Benjamin Franklin. As one of the most important of the founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin is without question one of the most influential people to call Philadelphia home, and you can see monuments and nods to him throughout the city. The unique Philadelphia attraction that we probably visited the most frequently when we lived there wasn't actually in Center City, but was still within the Philly metro, and that is Longwood Gardens. Longwood Gardens is consistently ranked as one of, if not the best garden in the country. Something else within the metro that I should mention before finishing this video off back in Center City is Valley Forge. Valley Forge is where the Continental Army spent the winter of 1777 and 1778, which became a major turning point in the war because of how much more capable and dedicated the Army was following their stay at Valley Forge. As I mentioned earlier, Philadelphia is one of the most historically significant cities in the country, and its most historically significant building is Independence Hall. It's considered the birthplace of America because it's where both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were debated and signed. It still contains several artifacts, including the Rising Sun chair that George Washington used during the Constitutional Convention. One artifact no longer found within Independence Hall is the Liberty Bell, which is now located in a museum of its own across the street. The Liberty Bell, with its famous crack, is one of the primary symbols of freedom that has been used around the world. There is seemingly an endless list of historic landmarks and museums in this portion of the city, but some of the things that stand out most to me include Carpenter's Hall, which is where the First Continental Congress met in 1774, the well-preserved Betsy Ross Home, Elfreth's Alley, which is the oldest continually inhabited street in the country. The Merchants Exchange Building, which is one of my favorite buildings in the city from an architectural standpoint and is the oldest existing stock exchange building in the country. The Pennsylvania Hospital, which was the country's first hospital. And lastly, there is Christ Church, which is known as the nation's church because it's where many of the revolutionary leaders worshipped. Benjamin Franklin's grave is in its burial grounds. The Museum of the American Revolution is located in the Old City District and is one of my favorite historical museums that I've ever been to. It has many Revolutionary War artifacts, including George Washington's war tent. There's also the Benjamin Franklin Museum, which explores his numerous accomplishments. Another museum is the National Constitution Center, which is on the opposite side of Independence Mall from Independence Hall. Just across the street to the east from the Constitution Center is the Philadelphia Mint, which is the first and oldest national mint facility. Kitty corner to Independence Hall to the southwest is Washington Square, which is one of 4 parks or public squares that were part of William Penn's original design for the city. The 4 distinct parks form a square around City Hall, which originally was another public square. They can be seen in some of the city's branding. Arguably the most famous park in Philly is Love Park, adjacent to City Hall. It has the iconic love sculpture, fountains, and recently got a new tech art installation called The Portal, which live streams video from other cities throughout the world. Philadelphia is known as one of America's greatest sports cities and has a very passionate and polarizing fan base. Most of the major stadiums are located in the South Philly Sports Complex, which includes the homes of the Eagles, the Phillies, the Sixers, and the Flyers. This wouldn't be a video about Philadelphia if I didn't mention its most famous cuisine, cheesesteaks. The most famous cheesesteak mecca is the intersection of Pat's and Geno's, which is also in South Philly about 2.5 miles away from the stadiums. South Philly itself is home to many of the most iconic cheesesteaks, with 2 of my favorites being the cheesesteaks from John's Roast Pork and Jim's on South Street. My very favorite in the entire metro, though, is De La Sandro's near Wissahickon Park. Well, that wraps up my video about Philadelphia. This was a particularly challenging video to briefly overview because there are just so many interesting things within this amazing city, and ultimately I had to leave a lot out. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.